Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snow. I am the founder and CEO of Powerful Woman Rising, and I run a fabulous community for female entrepreneurs called the Powerful Woman Rising Community. And it is just my favorite place in the world to hang out. We have the most amazing members who are so focused on helping each other grow and sharing value and sharing wisdom and supporting each other. And it's just my favorite place in the world. So if you want to check it out, I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Speaking of my favorites, today I get to interview one of my favorite people, my dear friend, Samantha Schultz. She is the owner and lead travel planner at Plan Your Perfect Vacation, where she has grown her business over the past 7 years and counting. She is an incredible travel advisor. She's recognized locally within her community and the travel industry as an expert in travel planning for international travel destinations. With personal experience traveling to over 70 countries and all 7 continents at the time of recording, she creates life-enriching international experiences with a VIP level of service for every custom itinerary she cultivates. It is true. Follow her on Instagram because she posts all of her travels, and you can live vicariously through her and her clients. What I love most about Samantha is that her focus on relationships, both with her clients and travel partners in the industry, is what sets her apart and strengthens her ability to provide the extra level of care and support that her clients have come to expect. So today we are talking about your relationship with personal development. And this is a very broad topic, but I like talking about this broadly because a lot of these episodes are about personal development more specifically. But what we're really talking about is how personal development can benefit you as an entrepreneur, how you can overdo it in the personal development realm, and why personal development burnout is a real thing, and how to find the areas of personal development that are most meaningful to you and the best methods for you to avoid that personal development burnout. So I love this topic. I love Samantha. She's got a really interesting take on personal development, and it's cool to hear about her personal development journey. And I just know you guys are going to love her and this episode as much as I do. So here we go. Good morning, Samantha. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to talk to you. Glad we caught you in between trips.
Yes, I'm happy to be home, happy to be here, and happy that we get this time together today because I think all of your podcast topics are super important, but this one I think a lot of people will be able to identify with.
Yeah, absolutely. So where was your most recent trip? Where'd you just come back from?
So the last trip was actually a personal trip. It was with family to Puerto Vallarta to celebrate the holidays. So got back from Mexico, and now I'm here for a little bit.
And then where's your next trip?
So I'm actually being hosted on a brand new cruise ship and cruise line called Explora Journeys. So I will be checking out their newest cruise ship that just launched last July, and we'll be sharing that experience with everyone.
That's fun. That's fun. That's one of my favorite reasons to follow you on Instagram. I mean, I love you, but also I love to see your trips and your fancy hotel rooms and your cruises. So, okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Tell everybody a little bit about you and what you do and about your relationship with personal development, which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So I am the owner of Plan Your Perfect Vacation, which is a travel agency that I've owned since 2016. So a little over 7 years now. I have been creating customized international itineraries as well as Alaska and Hawaii for clients. And I absolutely love helping people see the world. So that's been my mission since day one. My relationship with personal development is something that has always been a part of my life, even prior to starting my business and becoming an entrepreneur. So it really actually started when I was in the corporate world, which was prior to starting my business. And I got some feedback that was extremely hard to swallow. So while I always had these glowing reviews, people love working with you, you get your work done so timely, this and that, I was told that I basically was really terrible at relationships. And it's really funny to think because my business has been completely built on relationships. So definitely it's something that has come a long way, but it was, I guess, shocking at first because I always thought when you work or whether you're an entrepreneur, you work in an office, that being a hard worker is the most important thing. And I soon realized that while that's one component of, being really good at what you do, but really it's people first. And that is really, again, where my personal development journey blossomed. But from there, when I say blossomed, it actually kind of went the wrong direction. It kind of pretty much spiraled out of control because I started to read every personal development book known to man. It was the only thing I would allow myself to read. And then when I started my business, you start adding in business development books, which kind of can be personal development books too. And I know we probably will get to that later. I like it really became like I was like a junkie. I couldn't stop consuming all of this knowledge and then feeling like I needed to implement every personal development tactic. So it was something where then I realized, I need to take a step back, stop letting these books consume my life and thinking that I need to develop in every different way and be doing something all the time. Because I really wasn't making any progress. I had no focus. And I'm not sure if other people, I'm sure there's someone out there that's felt that way. But when you think you've got to do all the things to be better, and really it isn't all the things that are going to make you better. It's a few targeted things. So I actually took a really big step back. I cut out personal development for a while, didn't allow myself to read any books that were personal development related. And I got back to kind of having a much more healthy relationship. So it's now I think I have a much more manageable approach. And I'm really using personal development more, like I said, in a targeted way. So it's streamlined.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance. And I think most of us tend to go from one extreme of like no personal development. We do this with a lot of things, but
Right.
go from one extreme of not having any to then like obsessing over it and having too much.
Right.
And then eventually
Yep.
we swing back and find the middle ground.
Right.
Very normal. So you mentioned that there is business development and then there's personal development. And sometimes those two overlap. Like in your case, talking about your experience in the corporate world, obviously learning to be better at relationships and developing that part of yourself, I'm sure was beneficial in your personal life and also in your professional life, and definitely benefits you now as an entrepreneur to be better at relationships.
Right.
So for you, when you think of personal development, what is your definition of personal development?
So personal development, man, that's my definition, like a Webster's dictionary. I would say personal development is really, like I said, it's choosing focused areas of your life that are going to ultimately make you a happier and balanced person. And maybe that isn't very general, for everyone, but at least for me, that's very broad. But again, I've picked kind of a few things that I'm like, if the personal development does not somehow touch my health, my mental health, or just having balance between my business and my free time, then I don't really want to have anything to do with that personal development. So that's kind of, I guess you could say, my definition and what it has ultimately streamlined to for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you pick the topic and sometimes the topic picks you. Like
Right.
sometimes you can identify an area in your life that you're like, I feel like I could be better at this.
Right.
Some of us have more self-awareness in that area than others. And
Right.
other times, like in your experience in the corporate world, and a lot of times in our relationships or in our business, it's like, it starts to become clear if we're paying attention that there's an area of personal development that we need to focus on right now.
Right. And I do think there's definitely, there is some overlap, but I do have some like very separate business development, type of things that I do. But there is I think a very big overlap between the two because, I don't know about a lot of other small business owners, but it sometimes is really hard to make a very definitive difference between what is your personal day versus your business day. Probably again, going back to the balance part, I'm getting better about that, but really making a clear line. But I think especially when you're in those building phases, they really blur because you're putting every ounce of yourself, your time, blood, sweat, and tears. And so very much your personal development looks like your business development at those points. So it's hard to differentiate them separately.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And how would you say, like, I'm thinking at those times in business when you're in that push and you're like, I quit working 40 hours a week for someone else so I could work 80 hours a week for myself. That feels like the time that it's like, okay, I don't have time for personal development. Like personal development is a luxury for people whose businesses are running smoothly, who are making consistent income, who have been able to set up systems and processes to be able to kind of take themselves out of the business and have that luxury of time to spend on personal development. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that is where, because I mentioned, at least for me, my personal development was not targeted and focused at first. So I really wasn't making any progress at all. And in my situation, not having any real personal development in place as I was building my business has really gotten me to where like I said, one of my goals is to have better balance between the two, and I have absolutely none. So here I am 7 years later, working on things that maybe if I would have implemented slowly as I was getting started, I would be in such a better place right now. Because business is amazing, but then I look at my personal life and it's not. So I think that someone that thinks like there's no way I have the time, and like you said, that's a luxury for someone that's already been in business for a while. I think that they can go hand in hand, but again, it's really first getting focused. And, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs too, we can get, people sometimes call it shiny ball syndrome, where it's like you get one idea here and one idea there. You really got to come back to like, why did you become an entrepreneur? What are your goals? What's your focus? And not allow what other people are doing really impact what you need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's sustainable too, right? Like some of the best weight loss advice I ever received was don't do anything to lose weight that you're not willing to do for the rest of your life. And I feel like that's true in a lot of ways building a business too. It's like, don't do anything building this business that you're not willing to do forever, because you've got to somehow build it to be sustainable and to work within your life.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, in talking about things that, again, business and personal and how they sometimes blur, right now, you talk about systems and processes, which I love systems and processes and creating efficiencies. So it's like, I'm always analyzing that in my business, but then I was like, well, why am I not analyzing that in my personal life, and really kind of getting control over both, to get that balance. So I think that's where sometimes we do get so focused. It's like, oh, well, I'm doing all of the efficiencies and or I'm finding all of them and I'm saving time, but then I'm not doing it in my personal life. And I've just looked at this past year and why I'm implementing so many changes this year is I kept thinking, oh, if I keep doing this, things will get better. And it's like, you can't keep doing the same things and expecting different results. So at some point, like, okay, if I'm only focused on my business, let's get back to focusing on something personal.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you have seen your personal development and your business overlap, or vice versa?
Well, kind of that example right there. So like really looking at, I think right now it's efficiencies and also how I'm spending my time. So, if I'm looking at my calendar and it's all business stuff, I've really been trying to think about like, I need to start incorporating more personal things again. So again, finding that balance, because again, I can say like, oh, well, I love my business and I love what I do. So clearly these are all personal engagements or, fun things. And while I like to think everything related to my business is great, I also need to have time where I can somewhat disconnect a little bit. So that's one of the things that I'm really working on that I think impacts both of them. I think too, trying to connect. So, you go back to like one of my biggest goals is always looking at how I'm putting relationships first. Like that's kind of become a pillar of what I do. But, really thinking about when I'm getting together with people, it's very easy, especially since I'm friends with a lot of entrepreneurs, just to talk about our businesses, because again, our businesses are our life, but to really connect on a different level and find out more things about them personally and maybe not have the entire focus be about business. So again, I think maybe for right now, my biggest focus is like, it's trying to separate the two, but also marry the two as well. I don't want to say like, oh, my business is only 8 to 5 every day. I mean, in the line of work I'm in, that's not, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily sustainable, but it's something that I can at least strive to make intentional breaks between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Is your word of the year balance?
I did not do a word.
Well,
But
I just
guess you could
decided for
say-
you. It's
I mean, because
balance.
yeah, and I know there's also some people that say, "Oh my gosh, like balance isn't real," or like how, how can you expect to have this like harmonious thing? But I don't think it's always going to be perfect. But I think that if all of 2023 was off kilter, where everything was business focused, and I never made time for relationships, I never made time for people, I can at least strive for that balance. It may not get all the way, to even, but I can at least be trying. And I think, again, you go back to that term personal development, it's development. It isn't personal end. Like you're not
Personal
finishing something
achievement.
personal. Yeah. Like it is constant development, and I could be really great at it this year. And it's kind of like you talk about, it was like a really great point about weight loss and doing things like, yeah, if you're not going to eliminate carbs for the rest of your life, that's probably not the best strategy. Some people can, some people can't, and it's very easy to say I want to have this kind of balance the rest of my life, but things do creep back in. We can say I'm not having pizza ever again, and one day it sounds really great and you eat it, right? So it's more just getting back to where we are. And that's part of that development journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point about balance too, I think it's more having like the awareness of balance than it is actually achieving that 50-50 perfection. Because
yes.
I mean, I think about a lot of different areas of entrepreneurships, mortgage brokers, real estate agents, even travel agents. They have periods of the year where they are super busy, and they have periods of the year where there's not a lot going on, right? If something different happens with the interest rates, these people in this area are going to be a lot busier than they have been for the last however many months. So maybe you do have more time during a certain period to spend on personal goals or personal development or building your relationships and things like that. And other times you don't have as much time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that you're not perfectly balanced. It's just having that awareness and the knowledge of like, okay, I'm in this season where I'm super business focused a lot. Are there smaller areas right now where I can build that other stuff in?
Oh my gosh, you bring like that, like such a great point. Because really, when you think about it, okay, as a business owner, yes, you need to have balance, but you also have to pay the bills. So to say no, sometimes there are seasons of the year where you are not going to say no to business. And I think of even, people that are in like tax season, CPAs. You are gangbusters but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And then it's, so it's even if it's okay, I usually see 3 friends a week or talk to 2 girlfriends on the phone or whatever it is. And in tax season, it goes down to 1. That's considered, I would think, balanced during that time. And then you have your balance during, non, crazy tax season. And I think that's something I'm also getting better about now. I'm in the middle. This is kind of the crazy season in travel. We call it wave season. I've taken the term a little bit further, and I say it's wave season because we're drowning. Again, in a great way. Business is great, but there are days like today, I actually started working at 3 a.m. So I was up prior to then, and I got my computer open at 3, and I'll probably be working till late in the evening. That's not to give myself a gold star for that. I think that's terrible. And I'm working on efficiencies to get better about that. But I also know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That is not the way the entire year is going to be. I'm still creating. I have like a list of connecting with a few different people every week, and it doesn't have to be anything major, but just like little touch points. And that's going to be my balance right now until it becomes where, okay, let's actually get me out of the house and see people face to face. But balance is always going to look different based on different seasons of life and different seasons of business. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of your top tips for working on personal development, especially during those busy seasons?
Yeah. Well, I think overall, whether it's busy season or not, I mentioned really determining like your focus. So when I really wanted to take a step back, I'm like, okay, none of these development books are working for me because I'm consuming all this information. I'm not actually implementing it. I needed to get focused on what do I need to actually implement. So I looked at like, what does success look like to me when it comes to, and again, I think business and personal really blur together. So for me, I call them the 3 M's, and it's money, meaning, and mobility. And money is not, I never got into what I'm doing to like be a millionaire. Like I really got into it because I wanted to inspire people to travel. And of course I wanted to travel as well. So really, when I look at that first M, am I making enough money to live a comfortable life? And to me, that is considered success. Can I cover my bills? Can I have some money to travel? Can I have money to spend time with my friends? I'm good to go. So that was like kind of like my pillar one. My second one was meaning. So does my business have meaning to me, to my clients, to my overall mission and vision? So again, that blurred line, but as long as what I'm doing that, and I'm developing related to having meaning both to myself and to my clients, I was good to go. And then mobility is my last M. So for me, the flexibility to work anywhere, whether it's anywhere in my house, like today, I'm not actually in my office, but I can move around my computer, or work anywhere in the world. Do I have that flexibility and that mobility? So when I created those 3 pillars, now when I see a new personal development book or professional development book, if it is related to one of those 3, I'm usually like, okay, let's see what kind of new ideas are out there. And I think that's where, that kind of brings up 2 things in my head. One, it keeps me focused on not just reading whatever, not that I can't get other ideas, but really, again, staying focused and not getting overwhelmed or trying to implement 100 things. But also, too, I do like to read about like new ideas and things, but it's something to kind of be aware of. It like anyone can write a book. And some people are they really the authority on what they're talking about? So I now take things with a lot more grain of salt and again, try to align them back to my focus. And if I'm like, okay, yeah, this is kind of related to flexibility. Like there's one professional development book called The 4-Day Work Week. I might be able to take some nuggets from it, but I'm like, does this person really know what they're talking about? Do they actually walk the talk? Et cetera, but really also trying to take a critical look at, again, personal development, professional development, who's writing it? And is it something that like you have to follow, you need to follow? Like, are they really the expert in that field? And that all of that together, I think has really just kind of helped me stay in my own lane. And I think that's one of the things that's also attributed to just having better balance overall when it comes to development.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I'm always a huge proponent of is that there's not one way that works for everybody. Right. So I'm always hesitant in personal or professional development whether it's a book or a course or a coach or whatever, that's like, let me teach you the step-by-step system that I followed so you can follow it and you can have the exact same results as me.
Right.
Let's never mind the fact that we're not starting at the same place. Never mind the fact that our brains don't work the same way. We don't have the same networking community. We don't have the same contacts. We don't have the same privileges, whatever it is. So I like that idea of finding places of personal and professional development where you can find what works for you, take something new, try it, decide that it doesn't work for you. Maybe there's something else that you took from the same resource that does work for you, as opposed to things that are like, either you follow these 10 steps or don't bother following any of them.
Right, exactly. And you know what? I just realized too, like I keep harping on like books. I love to read, but I know there's some people that either don't love to read or they don't even want to listen to them. But I've actually kind of shifted to how I am personally developing. And I've actually, like I mentioned, like I had gone through my little like detox phase. I wasn't reading. I kind of got back to reading a few books, but I really am actually trying to focus this year. I am reading, but not necessarily development books, because I'm really trying to just rely on choosing to make meaningful connections and to learn from those people. Like I know, like meeting you, we've connected about business, we've connected about personal life. I've learned a lot from you. And I think those meaningful connections, I usually learn more about whether it's a way I can improve or a way I can be a better person just from talking to someone than necessarily what's in a book. So I apologize. I'm like, books. It doesn't have to be that, but really kind of think outside the box of, your personal development can happen in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the points that I make a lot when I'm talking to people about networking. It's like, we're always thinking of networking as, let me go meet with her and find out if she wants to be my client or if she knows somebody who wants to be my client. Right. And if she didn't buy my thing, or she didn't refer me to somebody to bought my thing, then that form of networking didn't work. But I love that idea of thinking of networking as also a part of your personal development, because there's so much more you can get from those connections other than just a client and income.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think that while it is important to talk business, and I love like exchanging ideas, and even people that are not in the same industry, I usually learn a ton from. But I think too, I learn so much more when I start asking, and it's going to sound weird to say I'm asking the personal questions, obviously not anything people are uncomfortable with, but I start asking about, just people's daily lives. And I think that sometimes can be just as impactful, if not more.
Yeah. Even just asking somebody why they do what they do or how they got started. I love to ask people, like, is the reason that you started this business the reason that you're still in this business? Because usually the why at the beginning is very different than like the why I keep going. Right. But you can learn a lot about a person just from asking questions like that aren't super deep and personal. And like, tell me the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you.
Right. No, and I think, and that really, I think also definitely what you share with people about like the ways that are icky to network, or I know you don't use the term icky, but I think of it as icky networking. But, it really, when you start just talking to people as if they are people, it really becomes a lot more than that, that weird situation, like you said, where it's just like, oh, are you my client or do you have my clients? Like you are developing those better relationships. And I think that you might learn things that could actually help your business more than just that one person becoming your client.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have or maybe one or a couple favorite personal development books or professional development books?
Yeah, I know. It's like I don't want to name names, because I was like, don't just read the ones that other people want you to read. I will say one that I usually touch base on almost every single year, go back and reread chapters, as well as I subscribe to the weekly newsletter. And I feel like every time I open that weekly newsletter, it's like bomb is dropped and I'm like, holy moly, it's like a great nugget. But that's Atomic Habits. I know many people have heard of it. Many people have read it, but I definitely recommend, if you read it once and it's sitting on your shelf, I think that's like my perspective on things almost changes every time I read that. So I would say that kind of is my like personal, again, it's the blurred lines, personal, professional. I can apply it to both. And I think it really has made, again, for me personally, it's made me a better person, and it's definitely made me a better business owner and better for my clients. So that's kind of the one I always am going back to.
Yeah. I think any entrepreneur listening to this podcast understands the crossover between the personal and the professional. I think that struggle is probably real for most of us. And you're right. In a lot of ways, they can't be separated. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And that's also sometimes the struggle of entrepreneurship.
Right.
For sure.
So
is there anything that you want to leave people with if they are new to personal development? If they're like, oh, I really used to be into it, but I've gotten away from it now, something that maybe they can start doing today to kind of start themselves on that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, with what I mentioned before about you don't necessarily have to call them pillars, but like figure out like what are the top two things or top three things that they're kind of like, again, mine are my non-negotiables, my 3 M's. Do I have enough money to live a comfortable life? Does what I do have meaning to myself and my clients? And do I have mobility in my personal life and my professional life? And get really just focused on, again, what is meaningful to you. And then maybe pick just like one resource, or maybe just talk to someone about it. Hey, I decided these are the kind of the top 3 things for me in my personal life and my business. Have you ever read anything, or do you have a resource that would be a great match for it? And again, just start with like one thing and build on from there.
Yeah. There's a really great app, and I keep trying to think of the name of it. I want to say that it's Mindful, and I could be totally wrong, but it has like all the personal development books on it. And you can listen to just like a 10 or 15-minute clip each day from that book. So you like, when you download the app, you tell it what areas you're interested in, what personal development areas you want to focus on. And then it gives you like just little clips from all of these books. And I'm going to search for that. Cause I think like what a great way. It's like, you're almost like getting a little
like a taste, and then you're kind of like, nope, that's not what I thought that was going to be. Because I think that's the thing too. Like you can download books to, your Kindle or whatever, or go to a bookstore, read it, think it sounds great, purchase it, and then you're like, this doesn't apply like whatsoever. So I think that's awesome. I'm sure we can all find it if we do a quick Google search.
Yeah. I'll figure out what it is before I launch this podcast episode and I'll put it in the show notes. How's that?
Okay, perfect.
So if anybody is listening to this, if they need an amazing travel agent, because you are awesome. I recommend you to everyone I know, including everyone listening to this podcast. So get ready. You're not going to have time for personal development. What's the best way for them to contact you and learn more about you?
So definitely, I always recommend going to my website, which is www.planyourperfectvacation.com. So just as the business name is, you can connect with me there. You can always find me on social media, Instagram. I know you mentioned earlier, whenever I travel, I document my day-to-day. So, and I also save a lot of my trips into my Instagram page. So it's a great way to follow along, get that inspiration, but you can also reach out to me that way. And I'd say those are probably the best too.
Yeah. There's a lot of food porn on your Instagram.
Yes.
So if you're into that, follow
that too,
Samantha.
Yes. Good food. Love it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about personal development and your journey. It was really, really helpful tips for everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Like I said, I am just so happy that the two of us met again, had that personal connection, and obviously it's led to great things. And that was all part of my development journey that led me here. So
yes, well, I love any opportunity I have to talk to you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Powerful Woman Rising podcast. I love to hear that you guys are enjoying this podcast as much as I am enjoying making it. So if you have not already left a review, I would love for you to do that. If you are listening on iTunes or on YouTube, reviews can be left both places. If you want, you can also reach out to me on Instagram at Powerful Women Rising, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast. If there's topics you'd like me to cover, if there are amazing experts that you'd like me to interview, I just love to connect with you guys. So definitely reach out and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Talk to you next week.